You
was
are like the definition of like, because you have so many really good things happening and then some really freaking terrible things.
Story of my life right there. It's so wild
Louise,
right
that
now.
stinks.
Yeah, it's even right now, I am so excited about, You're Invited coming out soon, and it's already out through Book of the Month and all of that. I'm so excited. And at the same time, there's this like huge upheaval happening in Sri Lanka where I live.
It's crazy.
So it's like I wake up in the morning and I see all this wonderful news and I see all this terrible news, and there's no sort of in between, and it's been wild. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I can't. I mean, that would be so hard. Like, I can't even imagine the stress.
It's funny because it's like, I think when you're going through it, you're just trying to kind of like ride the wave and survive how you can, and like trying to maintain sanity and things like that. But it's only sort of afterwards when you're thinking back, you're like, oh, it's
like a lot, man. And you've been traveling, you got, the 2 dogs.
I got the 2 dogs, and you have the 1 dog and the horse, which is amazing, and another doggy on the way, right?
I know. Yeah. Saturday. I wish it was like sooner because it could be here right now, but that might also be a bad thing.
No, we like spent the entire time talking about the doggy. So
yeah, I would probably be like biting my arm off, and I'd be like, no, not I don't know. I don't really have anything fancy, but I'd be like, what are you doing? Like they do movies.
They don't need anything fancy, right? They'll just like chew on whatever. So
oh, we have a hello from Concord, California.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, this is so exciting. I love that bit just before a conversation where everyone sort of signs on and says where they're from. And I always
Belmont, we got Half Moon Bay. I've been there. Sorry. I stayed at a hotel there.
Nice.
Recently, maybe like a year ago. Oh, originally from Sri Lanka. That's cool. You see that?
Hello. Hi.
Foster City.
You're following the news too, because it's an intense time right now.
Oh my God. San Mateo.
Ooh. Originally from Delhi. Yay.
All right, let's give it another minute and then we can get started.
Awesome.
How's everyone feeling tonight? How's it going? Man, we got Foster City represented, Belmont. Yeah, we got excitement here. Great, a smile. Awesome. I'm like narrating this, so. Awesome. Pacifica.
I'm glad to hear everyone's excited and doing well. This is so much fun. I was so excited for this event. I was so excited to chat with you, Eliza. So.
Man, I'm so I'm so impressed that you're here, because I feel like it's so hard to do stuff at the best of times, So like, thank you so much for making time.
Oh no, I was here. I was so excited to be here that I initially actually got the times wrong and woke up at 4 a.m.
No.
Like I started getting ready. I was like, oh, I have an event coming up. So I looked at the time wait a minute. I'm just so bad. It's because I'm really bad at math. It's like I can't calculate time difference very well.
Is it because it's tomorrow there, right?
It is.
It's my math.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Friday morning here. It's 7:30 on Friday.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So,
okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, and I remember when I agreed to the time, I was like, oh, it was a perfectly respectable time. But then for some reason yesterday, I was like, oh no, it's at 4 a.m. and then I set my alarm for like 4.
Because you're probably used to it, because that would be for like an East Coast event.
Yeah, yeah. It's happened many times before where I've been up at odd hours and things like that.
All right, so I'm gonna start the welcome. Is that ready? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Eliza Jane Brazier. I'm the author of Good Rich People, and I'm very excited to be here tonight in conversation with Amanda Jayatissa. Also, so next month, so August, we have Mike Chen for his book, Light Years from Home. And by chance, I am actually reading a Mike Chen book right now. I think that's crazy. I think that's a sign that we're all supposed to do. And then we also have Tony Mirosevich's Spell Heaven, an event also in August. So with the chat, your microphone and video will be turned off, but please feel free to use the chat. And then you can also submit your questions on the Zoom Q&A. So there's like a little separate box that's like just for Q&A. Yeah, the more questions, the better, because it just, we want to talk about what you guys want to hear. We like it to feel like a conversation, like we're all here together hanging out. And then for those of you who would like to access live closed captions for this event, click on CC and then show subtitles, which is down below. So yeah, San Mateo County Libraries welcomes Amanda Jayatissa. Her debut novel, My Sweet Girl, was a most anticipated novel for fall of 2021. And it also just won an ITW Thriller Award for best debut, which is amazing. Like that's like means it's the best book of the year. Like that's freaking awesome, right? And then her second novel, You're Invited, comes out on August 9th. And this one was selected for Book of the Month, which is also huge. And that means that some people are already reading it. So like if they selected it for their Book of the Month pick, which is very exciting. And Amanda grew up in Sri Lanka. She completed her undergraduate degree at Mills College in California. And then she lived in the UK before moving back to Sri Lanka. So we are all so glad to have you here tonight, Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eliza. I am so excited to be here. Thank you to the San Mateo County Library for having me. This is sort of like the big kickoff event. I think when you're getting closer to launch day, you start doing a lot of events, and this is sort of the first one that I'm doing in a while. So I've been so excited for it, so excited to chat with you, and yeah, just really excited to hear from everyone. It's been so awesome looking through the chat and seeing where everyone is signing in from and things like that. A very exciting time.
Yippee. Okay, so let's start. So you were born in Sri Lanka. So what did you always want to be a writer? Did you want to be something different?
I've always written, I've always read, and I've always written. So I think it was just like a very natural sort of thing for me. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old where I was like, oh, I'm going to write my first novel. And I had my like pink gel pen and my little like pink binder. And I used to like write this total ripoff, like a mystery story, featuring like me and my cousins. It was ridiculous.
That sounds really good.
No, it was
oh my
so
God.
bad.
I can see that as like a really cool middle grade. What did you read when you were younger? Because I read somewhere like you were talking about how like Sweet Valley High was really popular in Sri Lanka, which I didn't even read that. Like, so that's really interesting. Like what sort of books did you sort of read when you were younger?
So the interesting thing to realize about Sri Lanka is it is like, especially when I was growing up, there was no internet, right? So like access to things was very limited and things were really dated. Like some of the things I was reading was quite dated, and even some of the TV we would watch was quite dated. Like I grew up I remember when I was 6 years old, I used to love this cartoon called Jim and the Holograms, which is very much like a 70s, 80s thing in the US, and like this was in the 90s. So like we were a little behind the times, which was really interesting. We also had a lot of British influence because we're a post-colonial sort of country. Yeah. I read a lot of Enid Blyton, sort of at that, when I was about sort of 6, 7, 8, that age. And that was like the main thing. And as I guess people started traveling more and things started opening up a little bit, we got like Goosebump books, which again, I was obsessed with.
Yeah. Didn't you meet the author?
I met R.L. Stine.
Yes. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Oh, it was just wild. I fangirled so hard. I went up to him. I was like shaking. I was trying not to cry. I mumbled this incoherent story about how my best friend and I used to cut class and go read his books, and how I actually, the first book of his that I read was like one that I took off by force from my best friend and like never returned it back to her.
Oh my God, I love that.
Mad at me. And oh yeah, I was so ridiculous, and he was just the nicest man.
Oh, that's awesome.
So kind, I'm sure he's used to like crazed fans come up to him and like harass him all the time. But he was so gracious and so kind, and he asked such thoughtful questions about my writing and the award that I was nominated for and all of that. Yeah, it was wild. I loved it. I loved meeting him. I loved his writing. That was just,
yeah, no, that's so cool. And I really like that you like actually like said that kind of stuff, because I feel like I would feel like nervous to be like, you know, like honest and like be like really open about like, you know, really like enjoying somebody's work. You know what I mean? Like I'd be like, oh my God.
I was really nervous, but I was like, it was one of those like, you've met this person who meant so much to you, who means so much to your writing. I was like, I have to shoot my shot. And I'm not usually someone that does that, you know, I'm usually someone that like sits at the back, and I'm like, I'm very like usually quite shy in these scenarios, but I was like, you know what, my best friend would never forgive me. Like she would be mad at me forever if I didn't at least go like say hi. And then you know, like I had him sign a book, and it was just, oh,
that's so cool. Like, and so that was the night, was that the night that you won the award as well?
It was, I think, 2 days before I won the award.
Oh, okay.
But it was really cool because he was at the awards ceremony.
Yeah.
So he was
what like a fantasy. Do you know what I mean? Like whenever you're like thinking of like, even when you're thinking of being an author, I don't think you're ever thinking that you'll ever like have a moments like that, you know?
Yeah, you just don't. It is not. And it's funny because, you know, I guess people get very starstruck when they see like actors and you know, like musicians and things like that. And like for me, I get really starstruck when I meet other writers. And so you know, my trip to New York was a lot of me going, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Yeah, that's unreal. Okay, so let me go back more to where I guess more just talking about sort of your background. So you went to Mills College. How did you end up there? First question, and then follow up is what did you study?
How did I end up in California? That's you know, I grew up in Sri Lanka, kind of watching, obviously, like I said, there was a lot of British content that we consume, and then as we got older, like, you know, there was a lot of reading Sweet Valley, and there's a lot of American TV that we watch, and you have this sort of perception of what sort of the US is, and I really wanted to go there. I really wanted to be a part of it. I really wanted to go to California because in my, you know, 17-year-old mind, like it just, I don't have a very logical explanation for it. A lot of my classmates, because in Sri Lanka, if you go to sort of an international school, which is where I went to, it's almost understood that you would go overseas for your undergraduate degree. And a lot of my friends in my high school went to the UK, which makes sense because we studied under a British curriculum. And so when we, but when we were going through the application process, I wasn't feeling it. And I knew that it wasn't for me somehow. And I knew I wanted a certain type of education, and I wanted to go as far away from everything that was comfortable for me as possible. And so I moved halfway across the world where I didn't know anybody, because I thought it would be a fun thing to do. I mean, I was a lot
awesome. I love that.
I was a lot more gutsy at 18 or like 17 than I am now.
Yeah, you don't know in it. And then you learn, you're like, okay, wait, I'm staying home now.
I have my like space, and you know, I like my house, I like my bed.
So cool though.
Adventure.
And what did you study?
Nothing at all related to what I'm doing now.
Nothing. Go ahead.
I majored in international relations with a minor in sociology.
Okay. Yeah, I like knew it was going to be something like kind of like practice. I was like, you know, I mean, yeah, no, but that's, you know, you were international, so there you go.
Yeah, it's just I used to do a lot of things like model UN when I was younger, so I had this like idea that was what I wanted to do, and then I realized sort of it was a long, interesting journey getting to where I am right now.
No, that's really cool. So part of that was you did end up in the UK at one point, right?
So my husband, he went to the UK right after high school, and then he lived there for like 10 years or so afterwards, and is technically now a British citizen as well. So when we got married, I moved over there. We were there for 2 years before we moved back to Sri Lanka.
So wait, did you guys meet in California? This is like
no, we went to the same high school. He was a year above me, and we never spoke to each other ever. And like we're different groups. Like he was with the sporty kids, and I was with like the
oh my god, stop.
all the UN kids.
Oh my gosh. Also, yeah, okay, wait, this is an important question. How tall is your husband?
He's very tall. He's 6'7", so like tall by all standards. Yeah, I mean, it's tall by like international standards. In Sri Lanka, he's considered like a giant. You know, he's like a foot taller than the average man here.
That's
so
awesome. I love that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the novel stuff. Sorry, I was just gonna get a little, I had to get a little background. So you were actually already an award-winning author before you signed with Berkley. Is that right?
Well, it was a local award in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
So you had like, was that you self-published?
I did. So it was really funny because I was, I think, sort of very impatient. This was back in 2017. I really wanted, I was working on a novel that I had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't given thought to things like genre or category or like age group. I hadn't thought about any of that. I was like, I have a story and I want to tell this story. And I just, and it was a really busy year for me because I was finishing my master's here. My husband and I were working on like 2 businesses at the time. So it was a very, very intense, wild time for me. And I was turning 30 that year. And I was like, if I don't get this done by the time I turn 30, like it's never happening,
Oh my God, no.
Like, those ridiculous things you think.
Yeah. Like you'll never be old. So.
Like, yeah. Oh my God, like that's the end of everything. I was so naive back then.
I know, bro.
Yeah, so I just really wanted to get this book done. And I wrote it in like these weird little stolen moments of time, right? Like in between meetings, while waiting for classes to start, during like lunch breaks and things like that. And I didn't think too much of it. I remember I queried 2 agents, and even before like even before like the time period of them like being able to get back to me to reject me, because like I was certain that would happen. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna print this book. I'm gonna see how it does in Sri Lanka, because I loved writing, and I wanted to see if I could have a career in it in some form or the other. And I wanted to see if it, if it had legs in any way. So I just thought the easiest way to do that, I was wrong. It's not the easiest way to do it. But I thought the easiest way to do it would be print these books and like have them in like just like some local stores here, have it online a little bit. And I was very, very surprised when it got selected. Well, when it got nominated for this local award, which is the National Fairway Literary Award, which was
sounds
very
fancy.
Yeah, it is kind of, it was considered a very big deal here, especially because the Fairway Literary Festival was like, it was gaining a lot of international recognition, and coming off really well. Yeah, it was really cool. And the other books that were nominated in the category were fantastic. And, I told my family not to come for the award ceremony. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to win. It's not going to happen. Why are you going to bother driving all the way down there? So I went with like my husband and my brother like insisted. But my dad and my in-laws really, really wanted to come. And I was like, no, guys, like, no, like this is just going to be a waste of your time. And they were so mad at me.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Because the same thing happened with this one though, because remember when you were talking about it and on our chat, and I was like being like, no, I was like, you should really go. Like, it's probably like, I was like, this is like, it's like a once in a lifetime thing because you're never going to be a debut again. Although with you, it's not a once in a lifetime. It's already twice. It'll probably be even more.
Oh no.
But you never think you're going to win.
No, I did not. I did not. It was, I kind of blacked out when they said, like, I don't remember them calling my name. I just remember I was sitting next to Jen, our editor.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And I remember I just like was looking over at her, like, and she was like looking, she was like shaking me, she's like, go.
Oh my gosh.
And I look around the table and like everyone's like, I'm like,
That's
why?
crazy.
What's happening? It was just, yeah.
Well, and then like, okay, I don't know if your speech is like available publicly, but like I watched your speech and you gave like the most amazing speech. And like, it's because I think you really sell yourself short, which I'm definitely noticing as a pattern like already, because like you never think you're going to win these awards. You think you're like, oh, I'm a mess. It's like you gave this amazing speech where you just like, it was just like so meaningful and like heartfelt and like on the spot. And like, you just like covered you. It's like when you plot something, like you just plotted it perfectly. Like you hit all the notes, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just really moving, I thought.
It was so bad that
No,
I can't remember what I said. And I'm really grateful that
so
like, a few people had recorded it because I don't remember what I said. I just remember sitting down. I mean, like, I was so worked up. I was like, I had heartburn, and Jen, my editor, had to give me thumbs.
Oh my God. That's like the reality in it. Like, oh my gosh, it looks so glamorous. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so like to move on to your next accomplishment, well, not, I mean next because we're jumping around. But so you had this book, which did like obviously really well, and you queried only 2 agents and you just kind of put it out and it still did super well, which is awesome. And then well, I want to hear about how you got Berkley, but first I do want to say that I read that you are one of the first Sri Lankan women to secure an international book deal, which is also freaking insane. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. How did we get this novel? How did that come out?
Sure. So there are in Sri Lanka, there are a lot of phenomenal writers who write in Sinhalese because English is a second language over here. But of course, when you write in Sinhalese, your options for sort of international book deals are quite limited, obviously. There are a lot of writers who have who live outside of Sri Lanka, who are more, I guess, considered diaspora. I guess that's the term that's used, but you know, that sort of are Sri Lankan or have roots to Sri Lanka and have published. But there are very few Sri Lankans who live in Sri Lanka who've managed to get these sort of book deals in the US and things like that. And that's changing now, which is fantastic. But I think a lot of that actually just comes down to access and not having too much information about the publishing process and things like that. So one of the things that I try to do as much as I can is be like as transparent as I can about how I got here, especially with other Sri Lankan writers. And to be honest, the main reason I'm here is because of this Twitter event called DV Pit, which Diversity Pit, which is where you tweet a little introduction or a little synopsis of your book, and agents who are on like these particular days with these particular hashtags and so on. And agents who are interested in representing sort of diverse voices will come on and like they will heart the tweets, and that's an invitation for you to query them.
So you had already written the book. It was this book, is that correct?
I had written My Sweet Girl, yes. Okay.
What would you remember the tweet that got the attention?
No, it was sorry. It was something down the lines of a Sri Lankan woman living in San Francisco discovers her blackmailing roommate's dead body. And then when the police arrive, they realize, they can't find any trace of the body, or it was something like, it was like a nice condensed version of much more elegantly written than what I just said, which I mean, I don't think would have gotten any likes if I wrote it down like that. But yeah, it was something down that line. And it was very cool. The process was really cool because I think it connected me with agents who were really interested in hearing more than just like a straightforward thriller. They were interested in the more cultural elements that I included in the book, and they were interested in sort of my voice as a Sri Lankan writer and what that, what the end result was kind of coming from that. So, yeah.
So your agent that you have now liked the tweet, and then you
Yes,
sent the book.
Melissa DeNasco, she's like the best thing to happen to me. I think she also is very editorial, which I definitely needed, especially at that point, because I had this story, but we did sort of 2 rounds of edits where she really gave me some very, very solid feedback that helped bring the book, you know, to almost like what it is today, because then my editor Jen worked on it afterwards as well, and then we came up with a different ending and all of that, which was very exciting. So yeah, definitely without Melissa, my agent, and without Jen, my editor, the book would not be where it is today.
So you got the agent from DV Pitt, and then you guys went through 2 rounds of edits, and then you submitted it to editors. So how long did the editing process take with your agent?
With my agent, it was we'd just gone into lockdown. I remember.
Oh, okay. That's how we like time everything now.
Yeah, of course, right? No, it was. I think no. The second when we were working on the second round, it was when we had just gone into lockdown.
Wow.
So I think it was maybe about 2 or 3 months. About 2 months, I think. And the delays were because of sort of lockdown and all of that.
And then when you submitted it to editors, how was that process? Like, did you hear back right away? Did you, how did that go?
Yeah. So my agent is amazing in that I always tell people, I think she acts like more of my therapist most of the time, right? She's always like talking me down from these like anxious moments that I have. So she gave me this whole talk about, like managing my expectations. She's like, we're going to send these out and you're probably going to get a wave of no's first, because those are the things that usually come sooner, because, you don't need to get approvals if it's a no, right? You just say, no, I'm not feeling it. But, don't let that dishearten you. Normally, if an editor is interested, she needs to get multiple reads, and that process can take a few weeks. Sometimes it can take even months. And, she'd like really conditioned me into, not really having to worry about it too much. And we sent it out, I remember, on a Tuesday. And by the Friday, I remember Jen had sent an email saying like she's reading it and she loves it. And by Monday, she was like, okay, I want to make an offer. So that was wild for me. It was a preempt at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
so you only sent it to her? Is that what that means?
No, we'd sent it out, but she was like before any other.
Oh, before anyone else. Okay.
I want to make an offer because I wanted, and it was really cool because I remember I got on like a Zoom meeting with her, and we chatted for a while, and then we hung up, and then my agent called me back, and she's like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "I have to work with her."
Hooray!
I feel like she will be the person to really champion this book. And like she got it, like right off the bat, she got it. She didn't want to change any of the cultural aspects, which was very important to me.
Yeah.
She didn't want to sort of censor this abrasive character that Paloma was. She was like, yes, like let's give her space to grow. Let's give her what she wants, which I really, really appreciated. So I knew right off the bat that this had to happen. I was like, let's make this work. Like we have to make this work, and it did work out, and I am so glad.
Well, think how it's just such a romantic story. That not romantic, but like who knew that 2 years later you guys would be in New York, like accepting an award for that book? You know what I mean? Like that's such a cool thing when you think, what I mean? Wild. Like how, and even like to be passionate enough to preempt something, that's like a huge deal. Because that means they're, they really want it.
It was great. And I really wanted to work with her. So it was like, it was perfect.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're because you have a book that's coming out in in a few weeks, I want to talk a little bit about that one. So how did you arrive at the idea? I read that book, by the way. It's really good.
Super good. Thanks.
So glad. Totally enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And so how did you come up with the idea? And was it the first idea you had? Like, was it a process? How did that go?
I mean, everyone talks about second book syndrome a little bit, right? Where you have So this first book, and you have plenty of time to work on it, and you're very passionate about it, and then you have to write your second book, and it's always like a little like, okay. With You're Invited, I had thought about this idea a while ago, because I remember just being at a Sri Lankan wedding and looking around, and everyone was so stressed out. I mean, it was fun, it's wild, but like when you see the family side of things, and when you know the family, you know that behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. And I remember thinking, I was like, just as a joke, I remember telling my husband, I was like, oh, this would be the perfect backdrop for a murder, like for a thriller. Like imagine if there was a dead body thrown into the mix here, how wild would it be? And it's just something that stuck. And I remember I spoke to my agent about the idea, and she's like, yeah, like let's pitch that. And we pitched it to Jen, my editor, and she liked it. So it was that process was pretty easy, which is great. I wrote this book through lockdown, right?
Okay.
So I really wanted it. I think mentally I couldn't handle anything overly dark, like at the time, just because I was not in the best sort of place or the best.
I totally relate.
Yeah. So I wanted to write something that was a little lighter, and I say that with a pinch of salt. And
True.
My personality, right? Like it's still a murder, but it's still lighter. So hey.
Yeah.
But I did want to write something that was a little less dark, a little less spooky, but still showcased sort of some of the frustrations that I have with sort of Sri Lankan society and Colombo society, since where I grew up. Not a part of this Colombo 7 bubble, but definitely having access to it and seeing a lot of what went down.
So I should have done this first, but actually, can you tell us what the book is about? Because we kind of got it, but I should have done that first.
I did not do that. Okay. So You're Invited is so there's a woman, Amaya, who lives in LA, who's grown up in Sri Lanka, of course, and she's living in LA, and she finds out that her ex-best friend, whom she hasn't spoken to in 5 years, is getting married. And she was invited to the wedding, and she's a little sort of confused. And then she finds out who the groom is. The groom is her ex-boyfriend, the love of her life, and has left her quite brokenhearted. I think like she never really recovered from that relationship. Oh, my dog just crashed.
I can hear them coming in it.
And so she's obviously absolutely torn apart when she hears about this, and she's like, I have to stop this wedding. She travels back to Sri Lanka to put a stop to the festivities, and she comes with all these plans, but of course the bride ends up missing, presumed dead, and then she's blamed for the murder of her ex-best friend.
Yeah, so you can see why I was selected for Book of the Month. Like, what a great pitch.
It took me, like I said, book 2 syndrome, and I was very nervous about it in the beginning, but I had so much fun writing it, because I wrote in the book there are sort of different perspectives of different people from Colombo society, and everyone has these motives, everyone has their own secrets, and they all have their grudges against the bride and the bride's family. And it was just a very fun thing.
Yes, no, it's such like a fun book. Like I remember whenever I first read it, and I was like saying to, I was like, this is like really good. And it reminds me of these kind of like these Ruth Ware kind of books where it's like, kind of like, you're in like one location, there's all these sort of different suspects. It's like someone kind of reckoning with like their past and all these different relationships. And it's just like, it's super like, I mean, I think that you can feel like you saying you had fun writing. And I feel like that comes through when you're reading it. Cause it's just like, it's just like a really fun, like solid, mystery.
Thanks so much. That's such a huge compliment. I'm a huge Ruth Ware fan, so that's huge.
So so it's 7:30. So I'm going to do some of the questions, or I'll do the questions that we have, and then people please feel free to ask more questions. I also have I can talk forever. I only just like scratched the surface. I got a list here. So we're good either way, but we will do the questions from the audience now. So the first one we have from an anonymous attendee, which I better pre-screen this. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, I don't know about that. Could you see that question? The anonymous attendee, is that like a spoiler?
I can't see it. Oh,
if you look in Q&A and then open, maybe I'll skip that one. And then
is it in the chat?
It's on the Q&A. There's like a little button that says Q&A on the bottom.
Ah,
If it feels like spoilery. I'll ask another question. So from Neha Patel, what's your favorite part about writing thrillers? It's actually, there's two questions. So what's your favorite part about writing thrillers? And do you always know beforehand how your story is going to end, or does it happen more organically while you're in the throes of the writing process?
So favorite part about writing thrillers, for me, I'm a big fan of thrillers in general, right? I love to read them, I love to watch them. And for me, it's all about that, like the moment of surprise. And a favorite part for me is just that, I don't know, it's the part I love, and it's also the part I hate, is where you sort of sit down before you write and you're like, and it's all exciting, and you're like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to how I'm going to plot this out, and how I'm going to, keep certain things going, which is always very exciting for me, because it's like, how do I shock myself, and how do I try to shock those who are reading the book? So that's that moment for what's going to happen. I usually do know a few things beforehand. When dogs are okay.
Yeah, there's just, I don't know, it seems like there's a little action going on out there. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, no, keep talking. Don't worry about it.
So usually beforehand, I know a few things. I will know who I want sort of my main character to be. And I don't usually use the word protagonist too much, because oftentimes, as you notice with my books, it's like, sometimes it's not really too clear. Like, are you a protagonist? Are you like the good guy, or are you not? But I do usually want to know whose perspective I'm telling the story through. And also I have kind of a beat sheet of, okay, these are the main reveals, or these are the main plot twists. So I have those written out, but usually a little loosely, because I like to play with that. And I don't like to outline too tightly, because when I do that, I sort of end up losing interest in what I'm writing. And I feel like it's a discovery process. So after I have these main plot points, I usually sit down and think very, very hard about my characters and what I want my character to be, and what sort of, answer those like questions, like, what does my character want? What is stopping them from getting what they want? Sometimes I got really stuck at the beginning of You're Invited, and I had this journal, and I like wrote out a whole journal just in Amaya's voice. Just
oh my God.
And yeah, just because I really wanted to know, like, for me, that voice is everything. So I just wanted to make sure I got that down before I started narrating. Javi, like her friend who comes in at the end, and like we hear her side of the story, that perspective was a little easier to write somehow, because it was a little bit more sort of snarky and upbeat. But Amaya was a very anxious character, and it was interesting for me because I think I was dealing with a lot of anxiety myself at the time I was writing the book. So it was interesting kind of trying to figure out, okay, where do I end? Where does she begin? How much of a distinction do I want to make? And like ironing out all of that. And that was a really interesting and fun part of the process.
So, because your books do have like a lot of twists. So you, for the most part, know all of those before you write.
I try to, and there are times where I'll write it out and it might not work exactly the way I want, and I'll change it. And that's happened a couple of times. But I'll know, like I knew when I wrote My Sweet Girl, I knew what the big reveal was going to be. With You're Invited, I knew always what I wanted that big reveal to be.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's see. How do you come up with the creative plots that inspire your novels? I want to write, but I have a hard time coming up with a unique enough plot that doesn't feel borrowed or copied. Do you have any advice? And does writing ever get any easier?
Sorry to break it to you. No, I think it's funny with writing. It is difficult. I also love it and would rather do that than anything else. So it's always like hard when you're thinking about, like, yes, it is difficult in the sense that you put a lot of pressure on yourself and you're trying to, create something. And I totally feel your pain with Neha, right? Yeah, with trying to come up with these new unique ideas, because I think now, especially if you're looking at thrillers, it does feel a little difficult to come up with something completely unique, because there are a lot of thrillers out there that are so good, and oftentimes we find ourselves like comparing ourselves to these other writers. And I mean, we all do that. I know I do that still, and I know a lot of writers who still do that, where you're comparing yourself to everyone else that's out there, and you're like, oh no, there's no way I could come up with something as unique and as amazing as that other person. What worked for me specifically was thinking about sort of my background and what made me a little bit different. I'm like, we're all unique, all of us. But like, I think it's just trying to find that thing that like I knew was it was a story I could tell, because I had experienced certain elements of it, not all of it, thank God, like haven't experienced any murders yet firsthand. But I do try to think of elements in my culture, elements in my background, things that I've noticed and looked at growing up, and think, how can I weave that in to a story? So that's something that I try to do using, I mean, we all have to use, I feel like we're all dealt a hand, and then we have to play those cards, and this was my hand, and it's kind of trying to figure out how to use this and then work it into a story.
Yeah, I think you do make a good point that like everyone is unique. Like I've heard before, people say if we took like one pitch and had like 10 different people write the book for that pitch, they'd be completely different. So I think that's really, like wise, like tapping into your sort of like what makes you unique. Oh my God, I can't say it. Yeah, very good. So we had this question, which is, what is the motivation for the threat to Sam at the end of the book? Which that was the one that I wasn't sure if it was a spoiler or not. However, this attendee says it can be answered regarding the motivation without giving away what the threat is.
Cool. I'm going to do this, and it's going to be sort of shrouded in mystery. Because I'm so bad at trying to walk around.
Yes.
But let me say this: the motivation for Sam was first, the motivation for Sam as a character for me when I was writing was I really wanted to showcase a part of Sri Lanka that was pure and innocent and sweet, and that was what Sam was. He was one of my favorite characters to write, and I will say that some of the choices made towards the end of the book were very difficult for me, and the first ending that I wrote for the book, when it went out on submission, was very different to the one that we wound up with at the end.
Yeah. I wish you could tell it, but see, that could be a spoiler, because then we know it doesn't end that
way. I really wish I could. It had more of the original ending definitely had more of a riding off into the sunset sort of feel to it, where it was a little brighter, a little happier.
And Jen was like, no.
It didn't feel authentic to the voice of the book somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
And it didn't feel authentic to the protagonist or the antagonist, really, like or there's no protagonist.
It's interesting though, because what you said is you said that it was like the ending was hard for you to write. the way that it is. And I think that just like shows, like, sometimes you just like, you kind of like fall in love with your characters and you kind of like want to have that like resolution or that happy ending, but maybe it isn't, like you said, like authentic.
Yes.
Sometimes you're
Sometimes
scared of having the right ending, you know?
sure. And I think it's like, it's that very, for me, it's almost that like, I don't want to like that almost teenage romantic, like I don't know, like you want everything tied up nice and neat with a bow, like you want all those resolutions, you want to know like this character, like this happened and this happened and this happened, and then when you sort of move away from that, you realize that like that's more realistic in terms of how the world works. It's like the world doesn't always give you what you want, especially not for a lot of my characters. They don't really end up with what they want. Sometimes they don't even end up with what they deserve, you know. They end up with something else. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to sort of play with that idea, but also very difficult.
Okay, so next question from Lulu. How old were you when you published My Sweet Girl? And how did you get the idea of doing the book?
So My Sweet Girl was published last year, and last year I was 33. I think like after your 30s, you're allowed to stop counting. I don't. It always takes me a moment. So yeah, I was 33 when My Sweet Girl came out. You know, well past my deadline of life at 30. The idea I had. Oh gosh. Oh, when I was younger. So yeah. That was when it came out. Was there a second part of the question?
Yeah, it was how did you get the idea for it?
That's actually interesting. I was working on a different book at the time, or like something else, and I didn't know what I was doing really. I was when I say I was writing, I mean like I was waiting, like trudging through, like trying to make this story work, and it wasn't working. And all I knew was I had this really cool plot twist reveal thing that I wanted to do, but the story wasn't coming along. And then I had this really this moment at my bank. I remember it was just like a really bad morning where I was running late, hadn't had my coffee, you know, was dealing with my bank, and they were not being helpful, and you know, and we're still conditioned, right, as I think as women especially, to put on that smile and be really nice even though you're fuming inside, and you're like, I can't believe like you've lost my paperwork again, I can't believe like I've already signed this form, like what do you mean you don't have it? And I was like, all of that was going on in my mind. It was not very, you know, gracious thoughts, and still I was like and like smiling through the whole thing, and like my jaw was hurting. And so then I did, I think what a lot of writers do is like, I first went to my favorite coffee shop, ordered my like favorite and like the biggest cup of coffee that they had, and everything's better right after you've like had that morning coffee. And yeah, and so then I pulled out a notebook and a pen, and I started almost rage writing. And I was, you know, I was like really letting that poor bank teller like have it. I was like writing these like horrible things. And it was the first time I think I allowed myself to do that, because I think we're so conditioned to be like, no, you shouldn't be thinking that way, you shouldn't be behaving that way, you should be nice, you should be kind, you should be sweet. And this is the first time I think that I did that, and I don't know what really, I was really mad actually. That's what you know, encouraged, that persuaded me to do that. But yeah, I was just sort of this just rage writing, and after a while I was like, hey, this is fun. I wondered if I could like incorporate that into a character. And the more I was thinking about it, the more like Paloma and her characteristics came to mind. You know, like she's very abrasive. You know, there's a lot of profanity there, but it's all in her head. You know, she never swears or like says anything out loud. Like how
that's true.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So yeah, and that's where the character was born. And then I thought, hey, you know, that other story, like that's not working. Let me rip that apart, take out like the elements that I like, which was like the one element, which was the plot, and plug it into this, and it kind of worked. So yeah, that's how that story came about.
Have you ever gone back to that bank with your book and gone, big mistake, huge?
No, I have not. And like, I always feel bad.
Even though you didn't say it.
Like it's a tough job.
Well, yeah.
I'm not like, I'd like to like make that very clear that like, I am not Paloma, like I am not that angry.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite, I try to like, I go up to people, I'm like, I promise, I'm nice. Like, I'm
Yeah.
nice.
But now that you just said that thing that she only does it in her head, now everyone's going to be suspicious.
Oh, well, it's like, yeah, you're swearing and you're like, you have this like narrative going on in your mind. That is and I think we do that where like, you're like in your mind, you're like, all the bad words, and then like out, you're like, yeah, that's great.
Oh my goodness, awesome. Okay, so here is a question from Pamela Kraske. Do Gavin and Appy actually have a son, Gulliver, or have they lost a child? Can you clarify?
So they have a son, Gulliver, and Appy is dealing with obviously like the pressures of motherhood, and also I guess that's kind of a little bit of a spoiler, but not really. But Appy is also dealing with having lost a child. But Gulliver very much exists, and Paloma sees him. Yeah.
I will say what I like about these questions is that it shows that people read the book and like are engaging with it, which I really like. That's awesome, right? That's awesome. So thank you all for that.
That makes me really happy, and I wish I could. And I know that I'm being very shady and mysterious about some of my answers here, because I really don't want to spoil the book for anyone who hasn't read it yet. But if you do have like specific questions and you want to chat to me about it, just drop me a message on Instagram or Twitter, or you can email me. Like, my email's on my website, so you can always sort of reach out to me through that, and I'll be more than happy to explain things in a more specific way.
Okay, so the next question is from Mia. Are there other genres, which I love, I love this question, so thank you, Mia. Are there other questions or age categories that you'd like to write in, or do you see yourself specifically as a thriller writer? And I will add also, are there any other formats that you would like to write in additionally?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. So, I really love thrillers. So it's very difficult for me to envision myself writing too much outside the thrillers, because I really like the element of having to solve something through a book, like having pieces of a puzzle and we're trying to piece them together. So that can come out, I guess, in thrillers or mysteries, or even some what I would really love to write is something that's a little bit more horror or horror adjunct. I think I do love ghost stories, as those of you who read My Sweet Girl might have guessed by now. So I do love things that are really super creepy. So definitely would love to explore, I think, writing in something that's a little bit more horror adjunct, paranormal, like things with paranormal things. Sorry, my dogs are they're very upset that they've been left outside and they found a way to sneak into the room. So
yay, they want you to write about them.
Yeah, so definitely something like that. I haven't thought much about age categories too much. I don't know. I don't like to, for me, it really just comes with a big idea. And then it's thinking beyond that, okay, how can I make everything else sort of work around and accommodate this wild, sometimes ridiculous idea that I have. So things like age category and genre sort of, they slot themselves around the idea. I haven't thought too much about writing outside of adult for now. I use a lot of bad language in my book, so I think I'll have to tone a lot of that down.
I don't know.
I am in middle grade, so and maybe in time, who knows? I wouldn't discount anything.
Yeah. Do you ever would you ever want to write scripts or like a play or like anything, just like, I don't know, it's just totally out there? A musical.
I would write a screenplay for sure. Musical, probably not. I have zero musical capabilities. Right? You know, so like I can't do it, can't hold a tune. I mean, I enjoy them. They're just not something that I ever see myself doing. But I would like to write a screenplay for sure.
Yeah.
It's something that I would love to toy with. I love, like I said, for me, it really is, it just comes down to storytelling and like the best way to sort of frame stories. And I love that's like a challenge. And it's like, as a writer, as a storyteller, how can I tell the story in the most effective way possible? And I feel that, I mean, I watch a lot of movies and TV anyway. So it's just another thing that I would love to try to do someday.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we have another question. This is kind of I don't know if this is a question that you can necessarily answer, from Louise Duncalf, which is, I believe they're saying, is there CCTV in San Francisco? Which I don't know. I've only briefly been through there.
Could I ask Louise to clarify what she means by, did it have to do with sort of the Sweet, because I think I saw that pop up. Was that to do with like the Sweet Valley stuff that I was talking about earlier, or was that, am I just got the wrong end of?
Well, San Francisco, so is it talking about My Sweet Girl?
Yes.
Anyway, well, maybe it's maybe we're missing.
I don't understand what CCTV.
I bet it's like a CCTV with cameras that are recording things, right?
Oh, you mean like
camera?
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, possibly.
Well, in England they have CCTV everywhere, but no one like watches it, and none of it works. Like, it's like kind of an outdated thing, I feel like. And even when it was, but yeah, I don't know about San Francisco, but I would assume that there's cameras all over there's cameras across the street from me.
Right. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So I had misunderstood the question. Okay. Yeah. So possibly, what I meant was sort of just a security camera within the building, and I call it CCTV.
I think that's like international, but you know, it's I suppose an arguable point. So I think that we've answered all the questions. However, I would like to ask more questions. Why do you write? Like, what do you think that like compels you to write? Is it like, do you think that you're trying to sort of like share a message? Is it for communicating? Is it something that you just enjoy? Like, what do you think is like your main sort of reason?
Well, it just always seemed natural that would be what I would do. I mean, whether or not I made a career out of it, I've just always loved, like I've always read. It was just something I've always done. And so writing came very naturally to me. It's like, oh, okay, like here are these stories that I love, like what can I create myself? As I got older and I started honing in, obviously, I am a storyteller, like in the sense that, like my family get really annoyed with me because they're like, can you just tell us like the thing without telling us, like, you know, like, was it cloudy that day? Like, what were you wearing as you were walking to the store? Like, tell me what you bought from the grocery store. Like, we don't need the whole shebang. But I've always sort of been, but yeah, I think I've always been someone that just really loves telling stories. And that's just it's always seemed very natural to me. It never seemed like I think when I meet people who've known me, especially when I was younger, and they, excuse me just a second.
We have a request to see the dogs before you sign off. Look, that's my dog, and see, that's my horse.
I can show you Holly. That is Holly. She is.
Oh yeah. Look, they're the same. They look like each other. Okay, so
because yours is a mix also, and mine's a husky. So
I feel like I have so many questions. I'm trying to decide what's like a good one. Okay, well, okay. My first one is I'm gonna ask 2 questions, and then that will be our end. What are you reading right now? Are you able to? I mean, with everything going on, are you even reading? Or is it? I mean, because that'd be kind of hard.
It has been a little difficult. The book that I read most recently, and I don't have a hard copy of it, sadly, but I do have, it's called Someone Else's Life.
Oh yeah, I read that.
You read that too, I know.
Yes.
I really loved it. It's the last book that I read. It was just so, it was so suspenseful. And I really that it took a very very sort of common, not common, but like a trope that we've seen, which is like a stranger in the house, right? And it's something that I think we're all very mindful of, like all very fearful of, and it just wove it in. And I remember I was reading it and I was just like a full body tense the whole time. You know, where I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And it was like woven out through, it was the book itself, it just takes place over the course of one evening. And like, you know, a stranger ends up at your house, and do they have the best intentions for you or do they not? And you're trying to suss it out, and it's very cat or mouse. And I just thought it was so fantastically done.
Yeah, I read it so fast. And like sometimes, because I gave it a blurb, and there's sometimes, you know, when I don't, sometimes it's hard for me to read thrillers. I end up reading other stuff for fun just because I feel like it's like stressful almost. I don't know. It's like it's too close. This one, like it really like sucks me in. And like I just read it so fast, which is really fun. Like I just didn't want to stop. Like the way that she did the chapters and how she ended every chapter, it's like you just wanted to keep reading it. It was like really easy to read. Like, and so like engaging, you know, like, which I think is really like hard to do, you know?
Yeah, and it gives you, because it's set in Hawaii as well, and it just gives you such a lovely little insight to like things like the food and the culture and all of that. And I know Lynn Butler does this with all her books, where she like talks a lot about food, and it ends up making me like really hungry. Like it makes me really, really hungry. And you know, it's like she talks about food in this book as well, and it's always really good because it brings in like this added like cultural aspect to things, which I loved. Except like I was yo-yoing between like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh my God, I'm so hungry. Oh my God, what's happening? Oh, I really could eat something right now.
Didn't you feel like it was like about Lynn because it's like so close?
Sorry?
Didn't you feel like it was about Lynn because it's so close to like what we know about her? Okay, so this is gonna be my last question, which I think this is like you know, a lot of people out there are probably writers themselves, and are on this kind of like really long journey, this whole like publication journey that is you know, very difficult. So the question that I have for you is, how do you stay positive in the industry, like through the sort of difficult times? Like how do you kind of keep moving forward?
Sure. So I have to say that it really comes down, for me, it's come down to the people that I'm surrounded with. Because I have, you know, a close group of writer friends who debuted around the same time that I did. You know, yay, we call ourselves the
sound like a bunch of jerks.
This I have you know, a really good support system, and that really helps me from, you know, from other writers who understand what I'm going through and are able to, you know, commiserate or cheer me on, you know, celebrate sort of wins and like help me, you know, get over myself when I'm just, you know, spiraling in panic. You know, so that has helped. And then also, you know, just having my agent who's been there like holding my hand throughout the whole thing. And then I mean, even my team at Berkley are so fantastic, you know, so supportive. And I have to say, it's been a really interesting time for me, you know, living in Sri Lanka, living through this political upheaval, this economic crisis. And you know, I when I think about it, it's such a wild and intense time. And people have had, you know, nothing but love and support. And I have messages coming through from, you know, from writers that I met at Thriller Fest, you know, from the team at Thriller Fest, from, you know, people that I'm, you know, just met one time. And it's just been amazing to see this much support and love from people around me. I think that really has made a huge difference. I mean, I am a classic overthinker. I'm a classic warrior. You know, if left to my own devices, I will just dig myself into a hole and bury myself in there. So it really helps to be surrounded by so much love.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for this wonderful conversation. Thank you, everyone who joined. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for reading. Please check out San Mateo County Libraries' upcoming author talks at smcl.org/author talks. And we would also appreciate it if you could tell us how SMCL did with this program at smcl.org/rate this event. Everyone have a good night. Thank you so much again, Amanda. Thank you, San Mateo County Libraries, and thank you all of you for attending and participating tonight.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much to the San Mateo County Library. I've been so excited for this event, as you might have guessed by me, like rambling on. And thank you, Eliza. This has been so much fun. Yeah, this is great. And I hope you all have a lovely evening.
Take care of yourself out there, Amanda.